Right, just getting a tweet out, lads. Bear with. We'll get cracking. How are we doing? How are we doing? You guys can hear me and see me, right? I think we're Gucci. I think we're good. Lincoln, El Dante, Law, how are you all doing? The streams are back. The streams are back. Lincoln, you've got a little badge next to your name. What does that mean? Top fans, mate. You're a top fan, mate. That's what that means. Josh, you got Techers. How you doing? We'll wait for a few more people to come in and we'll get cracking. Lots to talk about. The daily streams are back. It felt like... I did say to you guys, I felt a bit bad because I said for a while, I was like, right, we can crack on with daily streams in the summer. But honestly, there wasn't much to talk about. There wasn't much to talk about that was actually of any sort of significance. So we did a few, and then it kind of... Everything's just sort of dried up as it sort of has done with Spurs, really. But it feels like we've actually got things to talk about now, which is really, really positive. So we'll wait for a few more people to get in here, and then we'll actually get cracking. How is everybody doing anyway? How is everybody doing? Also, obviously, I just wanted to say, once again, I've said it on TikTok, I just want to say it on here as well. Obviously, thoughts and prayers with Diogo Jota and Andre Silva's family at this time. It's like it makes football feel incredibly insignificant at a time like this, and talking about these things kind of trivial. But it's just, yeah, absolutely horrendous, and I can't even imagine how they're feeling right now. So, yeah, it didn't feel right kind of doing anything over the last few days. Kind of felt weird getting back into making TikTok videos and stuff again. But yeah, we unfortunately in these kind of situations, you do have to start moving on, but it's horrendous what they must be going through right now. And I think actually there is currently a Diogo Jota tribute on Liverpool's YouTube channel. But yeah, thoughts and prayers with them. Let's talk Spurs transfer stuff. Sonny, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. £5, massively appreciate that. Absolute legend. Gary, how you doing, mate? El Dante, Neil, Matthew Cipolla, how are we doing? Some familiar faces here. Let's crack on. Right, if you are new, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. That'd be massively appreciated. We're going to be doing these streams more regularly now because it feels like we are on the real precipice of pre-season. Spurs' first pre-season game is a week on Saturday at Reading away. I'll hopefully be there. I think I will be there. And it feels like we're starting to motor towards that. The players are back now, or some of the players are back. We're going to talk about that in this stream. We're going to talk about Mohammed Kudus. Obviously, we're going to talk about Cristian Romero, his future, because we've had a big update actually from Alistair Gold. We are going to talk about some other little transfer bits. Search for a defender. A couple of links coming out today. A little bit about Kyle Walker-Peters as well. Some talk about a potential link for a 6, maybe. There's been a chat about Nico Gonzalez, so we'll touch on that. Some chat about some other players as well, and some coaching updates at Spurs as well. So we will crack on. We got the week news yesterday that Mohammed Kudus is not negotiating with other clubs because he's giving priority to Tottenham. That's what came out from Fabrizio Romano. That's a massively positive update, obviously, in our pursuit for him. It very much felt like it could be a case of Willian 2.0. That's kind of what I was dreading. It felt like Chelsea were just kind of sitting there lurking in the background, waiting to pounce. Obviously, there is a chance maybe that could happen, but there has been certain sources that have come out and said a bid from Chelsea is unlikely. I'd guess they'd probably have to ship someone like Noni Madueke first, and obviously that is kind of heating up maybe to Arsenal. But I've still got a funny feeling about Madueke to Arsenal being a little bit of a smoke screen. It doesn't quite feel right, you know. So we'll be interested to see what happens there. But apparently, according to Fabrizio Romano, he is not negotiating with any other clubs, and he wants to come to Spurs. Matthew Cipolla, gotta love the West Ham fans. Gotta love how the West Ham fans are playing mental gymnastics on this outgoing. Been hilarious to see. The thing is with West Ham, right? I get it because they are it's a little bit like if you were to go up to how they're acting at the moment. It's a little bit like if you were to go up to a girl or a guy in the club, whatever your preference was, and kind of start talking to them, and they completely reject you. And it's like, well, I didn't really want them anyway. It's kind of that attitude a little bit from them. It's like they're kind of coming out and saying, oh, he wasn't actually that good for us anyway. And yes, obviously there was a drop-off from last season from the season before. I've obviously made a video on my channel talking through why Spurs want Mohammed Kudus, what he could bring to Spurs. You guys probably know by now, and if you have watched that video, you know I'm quite happy with the signing. I'm really kind of big on it. Law said, West Ham think we're strong rivals, hilarious. I mean, they definitely, the relationship is not necessarily that mutual. Like, we obviously hate West Ham, but they hate us a lot more than we hate them. Obviously, over the years, we have signed some of their best players, Michael Carrick, Jermaine Defoe, Freddie Canute. Who else have we signed? Scott Parker. Obviously, Scott Parker was the last player we would have signed from West Ham, and that goes back to 2011, and they were in the Championship at that time. They just got relegated. I think he won, was it Football Writers Player of the Year, if I remember rightly, from around that time. But we haven't done business like this in a long time with kind of a direct rival like West Ham. And obviously there has been a lot of chat about whether they want to sell to us or not, and their preference would be to sell to Chelsea. But there has been some conflicting reports, and thankfully the reports that are kind of in Spurs' favour are coming out from some pretty reputable people, Fabrizio being one of them. Obviously, David Ornstein. I went to see Fontaine's DC in Finsbury Park. I was in Gooner territory on Saturday night. Thankfully, actually, there was actually, when you go out these days and you feel like everywhere you go, you're always going to bump into someone wearing an Arsenal shirt, even though Arsenal aren't playing. There's nothing to do with Arsenal on, right? There's just no reason necessarily to be wearing the shirt. I say that as I'm wearing the new Spurs away kit, which is obviously beautiful. But in public, it's slightly different. It's like their Sunday best in at the Gooners. I actually saw quite a few Spurs shirts out at Fontaine's at Finsbury Park on Saturday, which was nice. And then I came out, got phone signal as I was walking out of the gig, and this was the first thing that I saw. Literally came out as soon as I was walking out at 10:25. West Ham have tonight received an offer from Tottenham Hotspur to sign Mohammed Kudus. Bid worth £50 million turned down, but direct club-to-club talks continue. 24-year-old Ghana international is prioritising Tottenham. If he exits West Ham, personal terms are not an issue. It sounds like he's agreed those personal terms with Spurs, and it definitely feels like he's kind of giving us his priority. We are the only team that he's negotiating with. Obviously, he's making a step up to Champions League football. I think the thing about Kudus between Tottenham and Chelsea is that I think people kind of have this like perception of Chelsea a little bit now. People are forgetting their wage structure has kind of changed. Tottenham would probably offer Kudus similar sort of money, maybe a little bit less to what Chelsea would offer, but he probably knows that he's going to be more of a starter, a guaranteed starter at Tottenham, whereas maybe some players are looking at Chelsea and thinking, well, actually, how am I going to regularly break into the first team there if I do go there? And maybe Kudus has made that decision. Some people might have this kind of lazy perception of footballers sometimes, and Kudus, because he kind of did down tools a little bit at West Ham last year and think, oh, maybe he's just going for the money. But actually, I think he probably knows that Tottenham, or you'd like to think that he knows that Tottenham is actually a better move for him and a better fit where he's going to be guaranteed more games. And maybe he does like the idea of working with a manager like Thomas Frank, who does have a very, very strong track record of being able to improve and platform these attackers correctly to thrive. Justin Cochran has obviously helped Thomas Frank out with that massively. Can Thomas Frank turn Kudus into an Mbuemo type player that is going to be an output machine? Or is it about bringing him in to facilitate turning the likes of Tell into a kind of more of an output machine? I've spoken quite a lot about how I think Tottenham will set up under Frank potentially and how Kudus fits into that. Obviously spoke about that in this video. And I think obviously Kudus on that right-hand side, I think what it does really nicely is balance out a front three where you've got Kudus on the right-hand side or Kulusevski, probably mainly Kudus for the start of the season, as a kind of dribble-heavy player. We know he's obviously one of the best dribblers in Europe. Only Lamine Yamal completed more dribbles than him in Europe's top 5 leagues last season. You've got a dribble-heavy player. You've got a striker that is a really good facilitator in Dominic Solanke, who's very good in terms of the link-up play and making space for others. Kudus obviously attracts players to him to try and get him off the ball. He's very hard to knock off it, takes players out of the game. Then if you're on the left-hand side, if you have got more of a output kind of winger who is focused on being in the right positions to score goals and get on the end of chances and making the most and maximising the space that is left to him and that is created by Kudus and Solanke linking up well, taking players out of the game with their dribbling ability but also their link-up play, Tell is kind of a very good fit on that left-hand side. And obviously it remains to be seen whether we will go and sign another left winger on top of Kudus as well, which I think if Son was to go, I think that would be necessary. But even signing someone like Kudus for the right-hand side kind of brings Son in a little bit more. And I'm going to make a YouTube video about this actually tomorrow, I think, where I talk about Son a little bit and how he could be used under Frank, because there have been some rumours now and murmurs about Son actually staying at Spurs, despite talks with LAFC. Again, I'm not sure on the validity and the reliability of those sources. But when you think about how you can squeeze the most amount of juice out of Son and what his strengths are now as a player in the age that he is and the kind of state that his body's in now, using him as that output machine and allowing him to kind of be that finisher on that left-hand side, like Tell, and maybe just use Son as a backup. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world if you're going to put all your eggs in the Tell basket. And obviously, Kudus can play on the left-hand side. Like Matt Cipolla says as well, he's a jack of all trades. He's played the 10 and the 8 for Ghana as well. His dribbles from deep are really, really strong. Jack Lane says it there, Kudus attracts defenders. You watch Son get 20 good plus goals because of all that space he'll get. I'm not going to sit here and say I think Son will definitely get 20 goals, but I think having a player in the sort of profile of Son, whether that is an ageing Sonny or Tell, to thrive in that space could be really, really fruitful for them. Make sure to like the stream, by the way, guys, if you are liking what you're hearing and obviously want to get involved. And make sure to subscribe if you're new, of course, as well. We are going to be doing these far more frequently now. Fazil Ahmed says Kudus will be a great addition, but I have a feeling Levy will find a way to ruin the deal. I think this one probably does get done. I don't think it's going to maybe happen as quickly as some Spurs fans like or some Spurs fans want it to. And I do understand the frustration there. But we are expected to go in with a second bid. Dom Smith from The Standard wrote a piece today saying Mohammed Kudus did report to the first day of West Ham pre-season training. His future increasingly likely to be away from West Ham. Second bid from Tottenham expected after £50 million offer rejected. And now obviously there's been varying different reports about the amounts of bids. And I've seen people kind of getting frustrated about that. There has been murmurs that we bid 50 million and then we bid 50 million again, just with sort of a different structure, and then 50 million plus all these add-ons about winning the Premier League or the Champions League. It sounds like that's not true. It does sound like Spurs have had one bid rejected for £50 million. When that bid actually came is, I guess, the interesting part of piecing this timeline together, because I remember Paul O'Keefe said something last week that Spurs had already had a bid rejected of around the similar price that David Ornstein was reporting on Saturday night. So when that bid actually went in, I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs over that by this point. It doesn't really matter if it was last week or this week. I know Spurs fans want to get this done. I want to get it done. I want to get him in for that first pre-season game against Reading. I want him to have at least a good week or so before that game, working with the players, working with Thomas Frank. And again, Thomas Frank, from what it sounds like, is very keen to get this one over the line as well. I think that's something that Fabrizio said in some of his tweets. Thomas Frank wants this transfer and sees a lot of potential in Kudus. Now, I know Kudus, I think there are things that he has to improve, which we did speak about in this video. I know I said why Kudus is perfect for Spurs, and I think a player of that profile is perfect 100% for what we need, and I think Kudus ticks so many boxes, but there are things that he has to improve as well. I think he needs to get his head up a little bit more, be a little bit more selfless at times, but sometimes with those kind of players, you have to allow them the freedom to do their thing, because they are capable of producing big moments and a lot of quality, these big X-factor moments where they do hold on to the ball for what you think maybe be too long, and all of a sudden they've scored an amazing goal or set up an amazing goal. You know, it's I think you have to kind of allow him that expression, but rein it in when it's kind of needed. And also Spurs have got other quality around the squad as well, where that sole responsibility on him to be that driving force in that attack isn't going to be the case. And I know it wasn't necessarily the case at West Ham as well. You got Bowen there, but Bowen again was that sort of player that did thrive going into space. Kudus, the dribbler, to kind of enable that space for Bowen to attack and to exploit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting this one wrapped up. What's everybody saying in the chat? Will Levy get the kudos if he gets Kudus? Nice little play on words there. Jacob, how you doing, mate? Go on the transfer, boy. Where are we? Kudus is a better dribbler than Eze. Not sure on how strong his creative ability is. I think they're probably similar in terms of their ability to create. They're slightly different kind of profiles. But I do feel like we need a player like Kudus, maybe slightly more than we need a player like Eze. To get both of them would obviously be fantastic, but we know Spurs don't really operate in that way, and we're not necessarily going to do that. What else are people saying in the chat? Let's move on. What were some of the other bits about Kudus? Ex-West Ham employee who is supposedly quite a reliable ITK for West Ham. West Ham are confident that Chelsea will submit a better offer for Mohammed Kudus than Tottenham Hotspur's current bid. It is also hoped that other clubs will join the competition as well. This was on Saturday, so this was kind of before the Ornstein stuff came out. This was some of the stuff we were hearing on TalkSport. Tottenham's bid for Mohammed Kudus included add-ons that only trigger if they win the Champions League or Premier League. Again, maybe I don't want this to sound like I'm sticking up for Levy too much, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I know Daniel Levy. I'd guarantee you there would be a lot of add-ons chucked in there 100% to try and get it up to the valuation that West Ham would want to try and appease them. I think West Ham have made their stall quite clear and set that out in terms of the money that they sort of want. So hopefully Levy does go back and push this one forward sooner rather than later, and hopefully we get an update in the next kind of 24 hours or so. That would be really, really nice. But I'm not sure how much I believe that, about it being Premier League and Champions League that wins that kind of trigger the add-ons. Fazil Ahmed, I'll come on to defensive midfielders, mate. I've got a little bit to chat to about that. So yeah, it's. I think this one probably does get over the line, and Fabrizio kind of followed it up after his update, saying Spurs are set to bid again for Mohammed Kudus next week as players keen on joining Spurs. Chelsea have also been in touch with more clubs interested, but Spurs want to accelerate. Frank has already proved Kudus as key target. The Chelsea thing will be interesting to see how that materialises, but I feel like they've probably got to shift players out the door first, whereas this feels like it's a priority for Spurs. So hopefully Spurs can take advantage of that position and get it done. If he is the guy, just press the button, go and do it. I'm not the sort of fan that's been kicking and screaming. I know there's been a lot of frustration, like the mute button has been getting peppered on Twitter, I'm not going to lie, with some people just going a little bit over the top on some of the frustration. I think people forget how early we are into the window, and obviously it's not nice to see a lot of other teams doing some business. Of course, we want to get stuff done 100%, but these things do take time. If we went into August and this was dragging on, then I would be annoyed. I would definitely be annoyed, 100%. But I think if we can, hopefully we can get this through the door, get this one over the line in the next week. That's when I'll then start being like, right, come on, hurry it up now. If that's not the case. Sonny says Johnson has to be playing more on the left next, surely. I could see that. Ange used him a bit on the left in the first season, out on that left-hand side. I'd be interested to see that. Because this is one thing I've thought the whole time with Brennan Johnson is because of where Brentford's squad was when Brentford was supposedly looking at signing Brennan Johnson under Thomas Frank, it kind of made sense that he'd fit in on the left. They already had Mbuemo. Tony was kind of banned at that point, so maybe he was thinking about using him as a striker, potentially. They hadn't bought in Igor Thiago yet, so maybe it was going to be as a number 9. Schade was there, but he didn't quite fire in the same way in the first season, so maybe it would have been up front, but I could have seen Frank using Johnson on the left-hand side of a front 3 as well, but then again, they did play a front 2 for a lot of that season as well, so maybe it would have been in a front 2 with Mbuemo, potentially, or with Visser. I don't know, it would have been very interesting, so I could see him play on the left. If Brennan Johnson is better on the left, then we don't have a single player whose best position is right wing. Yeah, I would say Brennan Johnson's best position probably is right wing. I don't think he's necessarily better on the left, but I think it would make sense to play him on the left in certain games, maybe as a slightly different option to tell if you were going to play someone like Kudus on the right. I think that would make sense. Martin Torkelson says, also, I've never understood what our scouts are doing for like 10 months a year. It feels like they start working when the transfer window opens. I don't know, man. Like a lot of these deals kind of come out of nowhere a little bit with Spurs, so I don't think that's necessarily true. I think our scouts are working on stuff. I think the way these things, obviously Spurs are trying to put out as less and less as possible out there And I think our scouts are like, you look at the young talent that we have actually brought in, the caliber of it, and we're able to identify these players. That takes a hell of a lot of work and a hell of a lot of time. Like Gary says, it's not their responsibility to sign the players. They're working overtime to try and identify these guys. I mean, I think when you're casting your net as wide as Spurs clearly are, like going as far as signing Vuskovic and Takai and Lucas Bergvall, quite obscure players that wouldn't necessarily be in the front of anybody's mind or anybody would have heard of before Spurs were actually linked with them. So, yeah, I don't agree personally, mate. But everyone's entitled to their opinion. Like Gary said, that Spurs were pushing quite hard for Desiree Doué last summer. Obviously, that could have been a potentially game-changing signing when you look at how well he's done at PSG. Ronnie says we are going in for Morten Hjulmand. Is that confirmed? Have you seen that anywhere? If so, I'll pull it up. If anything, Jack Lane says, if anything, I think Brennan Johnson become a proper old-school poacher as a 9. I think his movement is good enough for it to translate to being a striker. But maybe, again, as a winger, coming in off the touchline to operate kind of running in behind into those sort of half spaces, into those making those sort of channel runs, maybe suits him better to get on the end of things rather than being a number 9. Because there's so much more to being a number 9 just than that poaching ability. But I think in a front two, I think it could work, and maybe Spurs will use that at times. It's going to be fascinating to see. This is why, I've really enjoyed the break from football. I really have enjoyed the break off the back of the season. Obviously, we've had a lot of time to kind of revel in being European champions and obviously the Europa League winners, and just celebrate that. And there's been other sport and stuff to kind of tuck into. But I'm really intrigued to see us back next Saturday against Reading and to see some maybe training clips come out and stuff like that, which I'm sure we'll get this week, because I'm desperate to see how we're going to play and how we might set up. But again, I think we'll see different things in pre-season as well. So, who's the next signing if and when we get Kudus over the line, a new 6 maybe? Let's talk about that. Is someone, Ronnie, let me just quickly double check before we talk about that. Has there actually been any chat about Hjulmand, or are you just saying that? Let's have a look. We'll have a look. Morten Hjulmand. Is there actually anything there? Inter Milan are interested in signing him. I don't think it'll be a bad signing, to be fair. No, I can't see anything. To be honest, about him. So we'll leave that for now. But there has been a bit of chat about a number 6. Obviously, I mean, there's been a lot of Spurs fans kind of talking about Nico Gonzalez at Man City. Apparently, Nico Gonzalez is linked with a move away. George Mendes is kind of advising him that he should move away from City. I don't necessarily see that. I can't see that happening, to be honest. But I do think a number 6 should be our priority after getting Kudus over the line. And I know it doesn't always work out like that, in the sense that you don't necessarily do deals in order of how much of a priority they are to you. It's kind of just the way things happen sometimes. Some deals are just easier to do than others. And if you get there in the end, then it's fine. But I do think getting in a number 6 and kind of ingraining them in the way that Frank wants to play as quick as possible would obviously be ideal, but it's just, it doesn't always work out like that. But there has been rumours that, Fabrizio Romano said today, Juventus have been approached by Premier League clubs for Douglas Luiz, as he's expected to leave this summer. No talks or contracts ongoing with Como so far, despite reports. Douglas Luiz, I think, is 27. I think his ability to break up play and progress the ball at Aston Villa was really, really good. I would take Douglas Luiz, to be honest. I think there's maybe slightly better options out there. If you're going to go younger, I think someone mentioned it in the chat, but a guy that I've been quite keen on recently is Lucien Agume, Sevilla. Really talented young midfielder who was in the France under-21 Euros squad. Will said double pivot solves a 6. See how well Basuma did in the Europa when we sat a bit deeper. That is true, but I do think I still think we need to make, regardless of whether we sell Basuma or not, I think one thing that midfield is really lacking is a deep passer. Like if we were to bring up Tottenham's squad, right? See the USA lost again. Poch not having a great time, is he? That was in the Gold Cup final. Like if we look through Tottenham's squad and go to the midfielders, where are we? Obviously you've got Basuma, Bergvall, Sarr, Bentancur. Those are kind of your main. Obviously Gray as well. But from what we've seen in midfield, Bergvall is more of a ball carrier. Basuma's strength comes as a ball carrier. Sarr, the same as well. Bentancur, I'd say the same. When they're on the ball, obviously they'll have a good ability to kind of break up play, intercept the ball as well. But it does feel like when you look at those midfielders that Spurs have got, not so much your attacking midfielders, but those kind of players that would rotate in the base of that midfield. Gray, again, I would say is probably more of a ball carrier from an on-the-ball perspective. I would say we are lacking that passer. We are lacking that kind of deep passer, I think, to be honest. Like Caleb just said it there, we need a ball progressor from deep. Bergvall is not a good progressive passer. Bentancur's a decent passer, but not the best. Stiller is an alien of progressive passer. Also, he's very good at manipulating a low block. That ability to switch the play and be calm on the ball. I think Stiller would be a good choice, to be honest. I do think he would. I think we need someone who is going to break up play for us and progress the ball well. I think Douglas Luiz would be a good fit in that aspect. A good market opportunity signing, to be honest. And it'd be interesting to see whether Spurs are one of the Premier League clubs that have made contact. I'd be surprised if we weren't, to be honest. Obviously, with the links to Paratici, links to Juventus with Paratici as well. Who really knows what his role is? Paulinho, yeah, I wouldn't mind it, but again, I think I would be prioritising more of a ball progressor rather than someone who can break up play. Although if you could get someone who does both, I think that'd be ideal. Maybe I overrate him, but I think Bergvall has it all. We just need to give him the game time to nurture it. Bergvall is an immense talent. But I think, again, I think his strengths in terms of progressing the ball come from carrying the ball. He's got such an amazing engine. But I do think our squad, for balance, is missing that kind of progressive passer. And again, a lot of that is also linked to Romero. If Romero stays, then it doesn't become quite as important, although I definitely think Spurs should do it. Bergvall can and will expand his passing range, signing a Luiz. Paulinho will block minutes for him and Sarr. I don't necessarily think so, to be honest, mate. I do think, especially if Basuma does go, which I think he will, we need to replace him. I think signing someone like Douglas Luiz would make sense. I'm not necessarily saying he would be my first choice, but I think he would make sense. I think it's just a case of one in, one out. I think Bentancur will sign a new contract. Obviously, Bergvall and Sarr aren't going anywhere. Gray, I think we need to give him more minutes in the 6 or the 8 next year. But again, like if we were to have 5 midfielders and play a double pivot, then I think that's plenty. There's plenty of game time to kind of go around there. Where do you see Sarr playing as well? Not a passer, 3rd or 4th choice as an 8. Maybe sell him. Definitely not sell him. No way you sell Pap Sarr. No way. Not in my opinion. Like, I think that engine that he gives you. And again, people have got to forget, right? It's a squad game. We're going to be playing Premier League and Champions League football. It's not even about, like, say if we play Saturday, Wednesday, right? You could have Bergvall and Bentancur. Say if that, if we don't, say for argument's sake, which I hope is not the case, we haven't signed another midfielder by the time the first game of the season starts, right? You would imagine that probably our first choice midfield pivot is going to be Bentancur and Bergvall, right? Complement each other quite nicely, and they're probably the best 2 we have. If we've then got a league game on the Saturday and a Champions League game on the Wednesday, they could both start those games. But what you're going to need is starters and your finishers. Sarr is an excellent finisher with the energy that he's got, that he can come on with, the way he gets about the pitch, the way he snuffs out little opportunities to win the ball back and then can drive forward. Those off-the-ball runs as well, I think, could be really important under Frank in terms of getting himself into the box. I think he does have a desire to make those late runs into the box. I think that's probably only going to go up with Frank as well when you look about how he used someone like a Yarmouk, for example. I like it. I really like the idea of Sarr under Frank, so I definitely would not sell him. And again, it's a squad game. You've got to think about starters and you've got to think about finishes. With the injuries that we had last season, and obviously this Frank system is probably going to place physical demands on these players as well. Selling someone like Pat Matasar, who is just an absolute Duracell bunny, would be really foolish in my opinion. Caleb said it there. Pap Sarr's ceiling is so high. I have so much hope and time for a guy like him. Matthew Sapola, feel like Sarr will take a step up this year. Caleb again. Sarr is going to explode under Frank. When you see all the highlights from crucial goals in big games, Sarr is always involved, either winning the ball, pre-assist, or making runs off the ball. Europa League final. This is why I wanted him to start the Europa League final, playing in kind of that more advanced midfield position. That's kind of the position that I landed on in the end. I remember when we did that video, me, Kish and Seb, where we kind of spoke through 5 ways you can replace Dejan Kulusevski for the final. Sarr was the one for me, kind of playing as that furthest forward in midfield, because he just gives you, like, if you're playing against a midfield, for example, that you know you can get at them, like a Casemiro and Ugarte, a little bit sloppy on the ball, maybe in Casemiro and his age, or Ugarte just isn't necessarily strength, a little bit rigid. Like Sarr there, just hounding in terms of the press. Bergvall obviously as well. There's games where maybe you can play them both. Like I think Jack, like I think Bergvall can 100% expand his passing range, 100%. But I think we still lack that kind of deep passer. I'm going to do a video on it soon. Let me know as well, guys, in the comments if you're watching this after the fact or if you're in the stream now. Let me know any other YouTube video ideas that you want to see. I've got a video on Son probably coming out tomorrow, and we could delve into the 6 conversation this week. Maybe that's one for once we've signed Kudus, hopefully once we've got that over the line. Gary said Sarr is an important part of the squad. Would be an outrage to consider selling. I agree. Samiak says, if Kulu is fit, would you start him over Mohammed Kudus? Again, these questions are kind of impossible a little bit because it's a squad game. It is a squad game. Like, you've got to manage Kulusevski carefully when he comes back from injury. Kulusevski's going to play minutes in the 10. Kudus is going to play minutes in the 10. Maddison's going to play minutes in the 10. We know that Maddison misses a lot of games from injury as well. We're going to have to rotate in those positions. So, yeah, I don't think it's a case of having a first choice front 3 behind Solanke that you're set on every single week. Like, you could even play Maddis maybe off the left a little bit sometimes. Like, we don't know necessarily yet how we're gonna set up. So it's kind of the impossible question to ask. But I understand where you're coming from. What else we got to talk about today? Coaching staff update. Interestingly, also if there's anything popping off on Twitter that you want me to kind of cover now, I'll just do a quick little sweep to make sure I've not missed anything, or if there's anything we can talk about now. Is there, guys? You guys can help me as well. I don't think so from a Spurs perspective. We shall see. Interestingly, it sounds like a third bid for United from Bowman isn't exactly imminent. It'd be, slight update on Arsenal and Eze. Apparently they're trying to work out the instalments. But yeah, interesting. Let's move on. So, coaching staff update. Rob Birch, goalkeeper coach, has been at Spurs for a long time. Is leaving Tottenham. He will be replaced by former Liverpool goalkeeper coach Fabian Otte, who left in June. What it seems a major coup by Spurs. Obviously worked with Alisson, Kelleher as well. I think he was the one. Do you remember that video that was going around of the Liverpool goalie coach that was making them train with like noise cancelling earphones, and was it like vision blocking goggles and all this kind of stuff to like really get them focusing on the ball? Like, he's obviously got some interesting methods, and obviously that fits in with Thomas Frank's the importance that he places on marginal gains and the small details. So sounds like it is a good coup for Spurs. Obviously, speaking of staff, Thomas Frank has arrived at Tottenham, and a lot of the players have arrived back as well. I did actually have a list. I think the list is on here. Maybe not the full list, but the players have arrived back for pre-season training. I think the players who played international football after the season ended, I think are set to arrive back later, maybe this week or maybe next week, given a bit of extra time off. 45 days after the night of our lives in Bilbao, the first batch of players returned to Hotspur Way on Saturday to begin preparations for the 2025-6 campaign. Likes of Guillermo Vicario, Dom Solanke, Lucas Bergvall, Dejan Kulusevski, Decky Kulusevski, interesting they call him on there. Jed Spence and Anthony Kinchke were joined by some of our returning loanees, including Jamie Donnelly, Josh Keeley, George Abbott, and Min Hyuk Yang. 6 weeks of hard work started today. We know all that. Decky obviously working hard. I still would like to get some sort of clarification on when they think Decky might be back. Because again, I think we're hearing like so many different things. Like, I've seen people say like November. I don't know whether that's true. I don't know. Guillermo Vicario, there's Dom Solanke, Jed Spence, Anthony Kinski, Vicario again, there's Yang. Brian Hill. I made a TikTok about this yesterday, but it's going to be another summer of trying to sell him. Jamie Donnelly, who I think I'm interested and excited to see Donnelly in pre-season, to be honest. And again, I know obviously signing Kudus, that's another player that maybe blocks him in the 10 a little bit, but I'm excited to see him. Get given a chance. Dane Scarlett, George Abbott. Again, it was another one maybe could go under the radar in pre-season. Jed Spence. Will Lancashire, Dane Scarlett, Alejo Veliz as well. Lancashire, Josh Keeley, who is apparently signing a new contract at Spurs. I saw Alistair Gold say that. Yang, I think there was pictures of Vuskovic as well. There's Bergval. I think we've got Vuskovic here. There he is. And a good time to remind people of the monster that this guy is. First for aerial duels, first for 1, first for interceptions, first for goals, assists, and key passes versus under 20 centre-backs from across the world. I'm so excited to see him. Let me know in the chat as well. And also make sure to like the stream and make sure to subscribe if you are new. Which player you're most excited to see in pre-season. Gary said Donnelly technically is defo the level. Hope to see noticeable physical improvement. I think maybe that's the thing that potentially is holding him back. It's hard to say at this stage, but yeah, technically the guy's a joke. I think Donnelly can make an impact next year. Says Maf Sapola. Abbott maybe needs one more loan in the Championship. I would agree with that. I think it'd be good for him to take the step up. I also think it'd be good for Donnelly to take the step up as well. Vuskovic looks like a 28-year-old man. What lovely training attire. I do think it's quite nice, to be fair, the training stuff. I don't mind it. Obviously, they've got the black top that a lot of people are raving about, obviously, to go with the black away kit. What else everybody saying? Sonny says we have cover for Dom and Brennan Johnson. Tell Son and whichever youngster we keep. IMO. Yeah, maybe we won't go and sign a striker, but I'd be interested to see whether we do. Whether more links come out. I had a YouTube video kind of in the bank talking about Cali Mwendo, but it maybe feels like we won't. I don't know. It'd be interesting. That I will release that video because if Spurs do look to sign a striker, I think it'll be more of a general conversation about what actually we're looking for and what we kind of need as a number 9 to play rotation to Solanke. But big update, obviously, on Cristian Romero because he obviously hasn't returned back yet. Cristian Romero is obviously will be one of the later squad members to join back up with the team because of his involvement in internationals in the postseason. And according to Alistair Gold, Tottenham haven't received a new or recent bid for Cristian Romero from Atletico Madrid at this stage. Romero is due to return to Hotspur Way to begin his pre-season later this week, along with the rest of the players who received international call-ups last month. Thomas Frank is understood to be excited about the prospect of working with the Argentine. There was talk about... there's been loads of talk from Spain about them bidding and trying to work on a deal. It sounds like that's not true. It does sound like that's not true, and I think it maybe is them putting pressure, or the agent putting noises out there to try and put pressure on Spurs. Who really knows? It seems like Romero is keen on a move away. Maybe he comes back and is keen to stay for another year, potentially, and see what happens. He's obviously got 2 years left on his deal. You could argue now is the right time to sell because of the amount of money you get from him. But Romero is a player that I do think is obviously massively key for us. Massively key for us. And again, maybe next season, you'll see him be more consistent in a system that probably protects him a little bit more, but you're still going to see the best of his ball progression as well because of the way that, Thomas Frank used someone like an Nathan Collins. He does want his centre-backs to be bold and brave on the ball, and Romero suits that perfectly. And why wouldn't Thomas Frank be excited about the prospect of working with him? I'm pretty sure there was a piece of content that Thomas Frank was involved in where he said that in his all-time 5-a-side team or all-time football 11, he would have had Sergio Ramos. So he obviously loves a guy with that kind of character. Matthew Pollard said, thought I saw Atletico going in for Lookman. I did see that, yeah. Could be reallocation of Romero money on a different player for this year. I know different positions. Potentially, they've obviously spent money on Alex Baena. Johnny Cardozo is one that they want as well, apparently, as well. So they are kind of spending a decent bit of money. Atletico spend decent money from time to time, to be fair. They do. There's no question about that. So maybe they will splurge big. But it sounds like at this stage, Spurs haven't even got an offer that they deem anywhere near enough. And I don't think anybody... I think you can see the source saying it there in the replies. My gut feeling is that they don't offer the money that Spurs want, Atletico, and I think maybe Levy keeps him for another year in the hope that he can either convince him or maybe let him go with a year left on his deal, have a go at the Champions League. I'm not saying we're going to win it, but, I obviously hope Romero stays. But again, I think that defensive midfielder conversation becomes even more important if Romero was to go because... You lose a world-class ball progressor there, and that makes the progressive passing in the DM that Spurs hopefully do sign even more imperative in terms of replacing Romero in the aggregate. You could probably afford to bring in a defender that maybe isn't as good on the ball as Romero. There aren't many defenders out there that are, to be honest, when you solely look at that. And like we all want to see an improvement in Romero in terms of his all-round game and his consistency. But you saw it in the final. The bloke's an absolute monster. Like, he's such a key player to Spurs, a leader, captained us in that game. And of course, Frankie's going to want to work with him. But I think if he was to go, like I said, those conversations around the defensive midfielder become even more important in terms of boosting those progressive passing numbers, because we're going to lose a big player on the ball for Spurs. There has been talk about another centre-back, though. I still can't work out how reliable this Krish guy actually is. Sometimes I feel like he is reliable, but is that just because he's saying things that I want to hear? I don't know. There's clearly some sources out there, and we'll come on to one in a minute, that I just never really believe, to be honest. But apparently Tottenham have inquired about Coney de Winter. Spurs and Inter Milan have inquired about the availability of him in recent days. The Belgian centre-half. Both clubs are exploring the conditions of a potential move for around 25 million euros. He is available for apparently this summer. Sources suggest that Coney de Winter is a huge fan of the Premier League and would love to play in England if the right opportunity arrives, but he's also open to staying in Serie A. Obviously, he's at Genoa, the club that we bought Dragusin from. Many people said that we signed the wrong guy, really, in de Winter. I think de Winter's ball progression. If we actually let's get up some stats to have a look at. That's wingers. Hold on, bear with me 1 sec. Let's go back. Data MB. This website's really handy, by the way. Oh, didn't mean to get that ad up. Let's just get back to the start. Oh, hold on, lads. There we go. Defenders. Coney. There we go. 24-25. Passing numbers are okay. Let's have a look at someone like Roddy Dragusin. Yeah, much stronger progressive passer. Much bigger percentage of forward passes, progressive passes, passing in general. Slightly better ball carrier. Dragusin more aerially dominant. Better duel winner. De Winter maybe a little bit more aggressive in terms of winning that ball back. Probably a better fit for Tottenham's system. Certainly it would have been under Ange. And again now, I do think if we're gonna try and replace Romero in some way or bolster our defence, I think our box defending in terms of that squad, the box defending is actually all right. Obviously, we've got Dragusin, who I think probably will stay because of the injury that he has picked up. Kevin Danso, I think, as well. Obviously, we've got Takai coming in as well, potentially. So who knows if we will sign another defender if Romero doesn't go. But apparently Spurs are interested in De Winter, which I think I quite like him as a talent, to be honest. But yeah, we'll see on that one. This is the one. The banker, every single transfer window, Spurs are linked with Jacob Ramsey. Tottenham are working on a deal to sign Jacob Ramsey in addition to Mohammed Kudus. Coming from Football Insider, this is the banker, every single transfer window. I would love to know from fans of other clubs who their player is. They get linked with every window without fail. I just can't see this. I think it's just lazy journalism because there's this idea that Villa have got FFP troubles, and they're going to look to sell a homegrown player. I like Ramsey. I do. I've always kind of been a fan of the signing when Spurs have been linked with him because I really like him as a player. But I don't think he's what Spurs need right now. So I'd personally avoid. Obviously, centre-halves isn't doing quite slight much struggle physically in centre-back and the back four, but maybe good in the back three or defensive right-back. Potentially, yeah. I need to see more of him, to be honest. I do need to see more of him, but I know he's quite highly rated. That Chris doesn't normally post stuff that is wrong, but he tends to post stuff after big journos. I think he probably puts other journos in articles to chat GBT and probably repurposes them. Yeah, not a bad shout. Jane Byfield potentially getting a loan next year to make that 10. We have got a lot of centre-backs. Obviously, Ashley Phillips as well. Remains to be seen what happens with him. Yeah, Caleb, I agree with you. Ramsey's a lazy link from what I'm hearing. Is a way to show UEFA that Villa are trying to abide with FFP. Speaking of centre-half, Kota Takai is on his way to Tottenham now at the airport on his way to London ahead of his imminent and all but confirmed move to Spurs. So we shall see when that one gets over the line. Hopefully we get some more news on Kudus today. If we do, you guys know where to head. Obviously there'll be YouTube videos. I've already done a Mohammed Kudus YouTube video, so if you haven't watched that, go and watch that. But TikTok is the place for kind of my regular updates on the stuff and my thoughts. So make sure to go and follow me over there. All the links are in the description. I will be streaming regularly, much more regularly. Now we've kind of got stuff that's actually in motion and is actually happening. So if you enjoyed the stream, make sure to like it for me. Share it with people that you think might like it. If you're watching this after as well, thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one tomorrow. We'll be back chatting about any updates that come in that we can have a good old big Spurs chat about. Nice one. Have a good evening. Up the Spurs.